Every man wants to know the same thing. How do you talk to a woman in a way that makes her want you, not just like you, not just enjoy your company, but feel that deep physical desire where her walls collapse and she sees you as the man she must have? Most men get this part wrong. They either overcompensate with corny lines and forced confidence, or they crumble into self-doubt, hoping she somehow overlooked their weakness. Both approaches kill attraction. She doesn't want a clown trying to entertain her, and she doesn't want a boy begging for approval. She wants a man who knows exactly who he is and speaks with intent. Machiavelli understood a truth that applies directly to seduction. He wrote that people respond not to reality itself, but to the perception of power. In other words, it's not just what you say, but the way you deliver it. Your voice, your timing, your pauses, all these things create an aura that either draws her in or pushes her away. Now, here's the secret. The words that make a woman melt are not complicated. They're not poetry. They're not lines you memorize from some pickup book. They're simple, but they're delivered in a way that makes her imagination do the heavy lifting, because attraction, especially physical attraction, lives in her imagination before it lives in her body. So let's break this down step by step. First, understand the psychology. A woman's desire is not triggered by logic. You cannot argue her into wanting you. You cannot debate her into bed. What pulls her toward you is a mix of emotional stimulation and controlled tension. She feels the spark when you bypass her rational mind and speak directly to her subconscious instincts. Think of it like this. Every word you say either makes her feel safe and comfortable, or it makes her feel excited and intrigued. Most men stay stuck in the safe zone, asking predictable questions like, "What do you do for work?" or "Where are you from?" Safe questions create safe conversations, and safe conversations create zero arousal. If you sound like every man she's met before, she won't even remember you tomorrow. Machiavelli would call this a strategic error. If all soldiers march in the same direction, the wise general takes the unexpected path and captures victory. The same applies here. If all men speak like robots, you stand out by speaking like the one man who understands how to awaken her imagination. So, how do you do it? You start by removing the mask of performance. Stop trying to impress her with surface-level chatter. Instead, lean into curiosity that evokes her inner world. Instead of asking where she lives, ask, what place has changed the way you see the world? Instead of asking what she does for work, ask, what's the one thing you could talk about for hours without getting bored? See the difference. One question is a transaction. The other is an invitation. You're not just gathering data. You're creating emotional openings. And when she walks through those openings, she begins to associate you with a feeling of being seen. That's the foundation of desire. But here's where most men fail. They start good, then kill the tension with constant validation. They shower her with compliments hoping she'll open up faster. Fatal mistake. Desire doesn't live in comfort. It lives in the delicate balance between comfort and tension. Too much comfort and you become her friend. Too much tension and you become a creep. The key is to strike the balance Machiavelli himself would call calculated pressure. This is where your tone becomes everything. Lower your voice slightly, slow your speech, and use silence as a weapon. When she tells you something meaningful, don't rush to respond. Hold eye contact. Pause. Let her feel the weight of her own words echo back in her mind. That silence is where her imagination starts to play. And that imagination is what creates desire. Here's another principle. Don't describe her, evoke her. If you say you're beautiful, it lands flat. Every man says that. But if you look at her with a calm gaze and say, "There's something about the way you look at me right now that feels dangerous," you flip the entire frame. You've planted the idea of danger, of intensity, of intimacy, without ever saying anything direct. Her mind fills in the blanks, and her body responds. Machiavelli taught that rulers should never reveal their full strategy. The same goes for seduction. Don't dump all your interest at once. Give her fragments, suggestions, sparks that make her wonder what you're really thinking. When she asks herself, "What does he mean by that?" you've already won half the battle. Desire thrives on uncertainty. So let me give you the first blueprint for conversation that actually works. Start light, break the pattern, build intrigue, and then slow everything down. You create contrast by shifting between playful and serious, between curiosity and silence. When she feels the rhythm change, she feels alive in your presence. And once she feels alive, the door to her desire swings wide open. By now you're starting to see the difference. Most men think seduction is about trying harder. In reality, it's about speaking less but meaning more. It's about turning ordinary words into psychological triggers that bypass her defenses. It's about embodying the authority of a man who knows what he wants and doesn't chase approval. And here's the most important thing. You must mean it. This isn't about reciting a script. It's about embodying the presence of a man who doesn't need to chase, because he understands the game is played on his terms. When you talk like that, she feels it in her bones. And that feeling is what makes her want to follow you deeper. Now that you understand the foundation, let's sharpen the blade. Machiavelli taught that to influence people, you must learn how to control perception. In seduction, this means you don't just talk to a woman, you make her feel that every word you speak carries weight. Think of your words like arrows. A weak man shoots wildly, hoping one will land. A Machiavellian man chooses his target carefully, then releases with precision. When you speak to a woman, every word should either deepen her intrigue, build her emotional state, or intensify the attraction. Nothing else matters. So, let's build the second layer, framing the interaction. Most men fall into her frame without even knowing it. She controls the direction of the conversation, and he just follows along. The moment you let her frame dominate, you've lost your authority. A man who follows her lead becomes entertainment. A man who sets the frame becomes unforgettable. Here's how you do it. From the start, speak with assumptions. Don't ask if she likes to have fun. Assume she does. Don't ask if she's adventurous. Say, you look like the kind of woman who gets bored if things are too predictable. She'll either agree or she'll playfully challenge you. Both responses fuel the interaction, and both keep you in control. Machiavelli wrote that people crave leadership even when they pretend to resist it. Women feel the same in conversation. When you set the frame, you relieve her of the burden of leading, and when she feels that weight lifted, she relaxes into your presence. That's when attraction accelerates. Now let's talk about the kind of language that plants desire. Avoid sterile facts. Facts are cold. They live in the mind, not in the body. Instead, use language that taps into her senses. For example, instead of saying, "That place has good food," say, "That place serves dishes that melt on your tongue and keep you wanting more." One is information. The other is an image. Which do you think makes her body respond? This is what I call sensory escalation. Every time you describe something, add taste, touch, sight, or feeling. You're not just having a conversation. You're rehearsing intimacy in her imagination. She won't consciously notice it, but her body will respond with subtle signals, leaning in closer, mirroring your movements, or softening her voice. Those are signs that your words are working. But here's the Machiavellian twist. Don't overuse it. If every sentence drips with intensity, it feels forced. The true master uses contrast. One moment light and teasing, the next moment serious and vivid. That unpredictability keeps her on edge, and attraction thrives when she can't predict your next move. Now here's a critical piece most men never learn. Strategic disqualification. When you subtly show that you're not desperate for her approval, you flip the power dynamic. Say something like, "You're interesting, but I don't think you could keep up with me." Delivered with a calm smile, it challenges her. It makes her want to prove herself. Machiavelli would call this divide and rule. You create tension, and she works to resolve it in your favor. Understand this. Women chase validation constantly. Every man showers them with compliments. But when you flip the script, when you position yourself as the prize, you separate yourself from the masses. That scarcity is what makes her invest more. Let's put it all together in a live example. Imagine she's telling you about her job. A boring man nods and says, "That's nice." An average man asks, "Do you like it?" But you, using Machiavelli's trick, pause, hold eye contact and say, "It sounds like you're good at controlling situations, but I wonder what you're like when you let go of control." Do you see the difference? You've taken her rational story and twisted it into a frame of surrender, of letting go. You've planted an image without being crude. That single line separates you from every man she's ever spoken to. That's how power in conversation works. Silence, again, becomes your ally. After a statement like that, you don't rush. You let the tension breathe. You let her imagination work against her. She either laugh nervously, challenge you, or lean in. No matter what, you've already shifted the frame from casual talk to intimate intrigue. Another powerful tool is storytelling. Machiavelli wrote about the art of crafting narratives to influence rulers. In Seduction, your stories create emotional experiences. But here's the key: never tell stories for approval. Tell stories that reveal qualities indirectly. Instead of bragging, tell a story that shows your confidence, your ability to lead, or your adventurous side. She should feel your value rather than hear you claim it. For example, instead of saying, "I'm confident," you share a short story. "Last month, my friends dared me to start a conversation with the most intimidating stranger in the room. 10 minutes later, we were laughing like old friends." The story shows confidence without needing to say the word. She experiences your character through imagery, not through self-advertisement. This storytelling does two things. It bypasses her logical mind and creates emotional immersion, and it positions you as a man of action, not words. That is pure Machiavellian power, appearing humble while demonstrating dominance. Finally, let's talk about intent. The biggest mistake men make is hiding their desire out of fear. They pretend to be just friends or hide behind endless banter, but desire unspoken dies. You must communicate your interest, but do it with control. Instead of blurting, "I like you," say, "There's something about the way you speak that makes me want to know what you're like when you stop holding back." That sentence communicates desire, but it also creates a challenge. It's not needy, it's assertive. It's framed in a way that makes her curiosity and arousal rise together. That balance between showing intent and maintaining control is the very essence of Machiavellian seduction. By mastering these tools, framing, sensory escalation, strategic disqualification, storytelling, and controlled intent, You elevate yourself above 99% of men. You're no longer a participant in her world. You're the architect of the experience. And when she feels that, the outcome is inevitable. At this point, you understand how to frame the conversation, how to use sensory language, and how to subtly disqualify her. But now, we must advance into the deepest layer of Machiavellian seduction, emotional manipulation disguised as connection. This is where most men fail, because they either become too obvious or too mechanical. The real art is weaving emotion so smoothly that she feels it without ever suspecting your hand. Machiavelli wrote that rulers love those who give them both fear and hope. Apply this principle here. She must feel the thrill of uncertainty mixed with the comfort of safety. Too much comfort, and she grows bored. Too much uncertainty, and she retreats. Balance both, and she becomes addicted. How do you achieve this balance with words? You alternate between push and pull. Push creates distance, pull creates closeness. Here's an example. You might say, "You seem like trouble. I should probably stay away from you." That's push. Then you lean in slightly, lower your voice, and add, "But I'm curious enough to take the risk." That's pull. She feels rejection and acceptance within seconds. That emotional roller coaster makes her body produce chemicals of tension and relief. The exact same chemicals tied to desire. When you master push and pull, you stop chasing her. Instead, you become the force she chases. Because now, she is working to resolve the emotional swings you create. And people always invest in what makes them feel. Next, let's talk about mirroring and breaking. Mirroring means reflecting her words, tone, or gestures just enough to create comfort. But then you break it deliberately to regain control. For instance, if she laughs, you laugh a little. Then stop first and hold eye contact. That tiny act establishes dominance without saying a word. She feels that you're in sync, but she also feels you're the one who decides when the moment shifts. That duality makes her follow your lead. This leads us into one of the most powerful weapons, emotional anchoring. Every time you create a spike of laughter, tension, or intrigue, you anchor it to yourself. Use her name, use touch, use silence. If she laughs hard, touch her arm lightly and say her name. Now, the pleasure of that moment links to your presence. Later, even when you're silent, she'll feel the echo of that emotion. This is the kind of psychological weaving Machiavelli would admire, planting seeds in the mind that grow without her awareness. Now, let's uncover another mistake most men make. They believe seduction is all about agreement. They nod, they agree, they validate endlessly, but constant agreement breeds predictability, and predictability kills desire. Instead, practice playful defiance. If she says, "I love romantic movies," don't just agree. Say, "Of course you do. You look like the type who cries at the same scene every time." Delivered with a smirk, it teases her, disarms her, and challenges her. She will respond by proving you wrong, and that proof pulls her deeper into your frame. Playful defiance is not cruelty. It's tension wrapped in charm. It signals strength without aggression. It shows that you see through her, and women crave that feeling, the sense that a man understands her beyond her surface words. That is where respect begins, and respect is the soil where desire grows. Another principle, directing her imagination. Instead of telling her what you want, guide her mind with suggestive language. Say, "I bet when you let yourself go, you surprise people." That sentence does two things. It plants the idea of her losing control, and it makes her want to prove it to you. You don't demand, you suggest. You don't command, you insinuate. Machiavelli would call this ruling with illusion, appearing to give freedom while guiding the outcome. Now let's address the transition point, the bridge between conversation and physical escalation. Words alone won't carry you forever. At some point, your conversation must create the space for touch, for closeness, and here's how you do it. Use situational framing. Talk about environments of intimacy. Say, "This place is too loud for a real conversation. I'd rather be somewhere quieter, where I can hear every word you whisper." Suddenly, her mind is no longer in the bar or cafe. It's in the private setting you've described. That mental shift paves the way for physical reality. Follow this with light touches that match the rhythm of the conversation. If she makes a strong point, tap her hand briefly. If she laughs, touch her shoulder. Always light, always fleeting. The goal is not the touch itself, it's to normalize physical contact. Once it feels natural, deeper contact will not feel like a leap. Finally, we must address the frame of inevitability. Machiavelli knew that the strongest rulers made outcomes feel destined, not forced. In seduction, this means you never plead, never ask, never beg. Instead, you speak as if what happens between you is the most natural thing in the world. For example, "It's rare to meet someone I can talk to like this. I already know this isn't the last time we're seeing each other." That statement assumes the outcome. It doesn't question it. It frames intimacy as inevitable. Women resist when they feel pressured, but when you remove pressure and replace it with certainty, they relax. They let the current pull them because it feels like the natural flow. That is how you move from words to action, through the silent power of inevitability. By this stage, your conversation is no longer small talk. It's a web of intrigue, tension, emotion, and certainty. She feels a mix of curiosity, attraction, and surrender. And you, if you've followed this path, have transformed from just another man into the embodiment of desire she cannot explain but cannot resist. Now we arrive at the most delicate and decisive stage, closing the deal. Everything up to this point has been preparation, a careful layering of intrigue, dominance, and emotional pull. But here, the words you choose will determine whether the night ends with a polite goodbye, or with her in your bed. The first rule of closing is simplicity. Do not complicate the moment with over-explaining nervous chatter or endless justification. The more you explain, the weaker your frame becomes. Machiavelli warned against rulers who justified too much. It exposed uncertainty. The same applies here. Your confidence must remain unshaken, and your words must carry inevitability. So how do you frame that inevitability? You do it by speaking as if the outcome is already decided. You don't ask, "Do you want to come over?" That gives her the power to decide, and it signals uncertainty. Instead, you say, "Let's get out of here. I know a place will be more comfortable." The difference is subtle but powerful. One begs, the other commands with charm. But here's where most men fail. They confuse inevitability with aggression. Remember, this is not force, it's guidance. She must feel that she chose it, even though you set the path. That's the Machiavellian trick, control disguised as choice. To do this effectively, you must master pre-framing. Throughout the interaction, you seed small suggestions that make leaving together feel natural. You might say earlier, "You'd probably cook a mean late-night snack," or "I bet your taste in music sounds even better," when it's just the two of us. These small lines are invisible threads. When you finally suggest leaving, the idea feels familiar, not sudden. She accepts because her mind already rehearsed it. The second weapon here is time pressure. Not desperation, but urgency. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, and in seduction, boldness must strike before the moment fades. So you introduce subtle urgency. "We've only got a little time before tomorrow comes. Let's make it count." Suddenly, the present feels precious. She doesn't want to lose it, and that urgency lowers her resistance. Now let's address the power of isolation. Seduction does not happen in groups, it happens in moments of privacy. Your words must lead her away from distractions. If you're in a loud place, say, "Let's grab some air." If you're at a party, say, "Come with me, I want to show you something." The words are simple, but the act of isolating her creates intimacy. Every step away from the crowd strengthens the frame that it's just the two of you. Once isolated, you amplify emotional anchoring. You slow your voice, lower your tone, and hold longer pauses. Silence becomes your ally. Silence intensifies tension, and tension is the bridge to desire. If she fills the silence nervously, you smirk, lean closer, and break it with something suggestive. "You know, I like how easy it feels with you." That single line softens her guard and opens the door. At this stage, touch escalation must flow naturally from your words. You never leap, you climb. Hand to arm, arm to shoulder, shoulder to waist. Each step validates the previous one. Your language matches your movements. You're dangerous, you know that. As you hold her hand longer, "See what you do to me." As your hand lingers at her hip, each phrase creates a loop of meaning and action, words and touch reinforcing each other. But the final trigger is permission without asking. You don't say, "Can I kiss you?" That kills the tension. Instead, you frame it as a statement of inevitability. "I shouldn't be doing this right now, but I want to." Then you move in. The hesitation in your words is false. It heightens suspense. The action that follows breaks it. That moment of release cements desire. Now understand this truth. Once she's kissed you, the frame is sealed. Her body has confirmed what her mind already entertained. From here, you don't retreat into talk. You guide. You say, "Let's get out of here before I lose control." The phrasing puts the responsibility on you, but in reality, it's an invitation she feels responsible for accepting. The Machiavellian trick is not manipulation for its own sake. It's about constructing inevitability so smooth that she believes it's her choice. Every word you've spoken, every silence you've allowed, every tease you've delivered, it all points toward the same conclusion. By the time you suggest leaving, she doesn't feel pressured. She feels aligned. To close, you keep your tone steady and light. You don't announce. You don't ask. You don't plead. You guide. You say, "Come on, let's go." If she hesitates, you smile, lean back, and say, "I'm not going to beg, but I'll enjoy you when you're ready." That statement does three things at once. It removes pressure, it maintains control, and it reestablishes desire. And 9 times out of 10, she follows. This is the art of seduction Machiavelli himself would recognize. It is not about raw power or blunt force. It is about subtlety, suggestion, and control through illusion. Speak as though the path is already chosen, and she will walk it, believing it was her idea all along. Now we reach the final layer of this seduction strategy, the stage where you transition from closing the night to establishing lasting power. Too many men believe the victory ends once she steps into your bed. That is short-sighted. The true power lies in making her crave you again, in ensuring the night was not an accident but the beginning of an irresistible pull. Machiavelli taught that a ruler never secures power through a single battle. He secures it by making his influence unavoidable. Apply this to seduction. The words you speak after intimacy matter just as much as those before it. If you act careless or detached, she interprets it as weakness. If you act needy or overly affectionate, she senses desperation. The key is balance, that calm dominance that leaves her wanting more without ever doubting your control. The first principle here is post-frame reinforcement. After intimacy, you maintain the same confident tone that brought her to you in the first place. You don't celebrate. You don't brag. You don't ask, "Did you enjoy it?" Those questions reveal insecurity. Instead, you say something that frames the moment as expected. That's what happens when two people can't resist each other. Simple, confident, and reinforcing inevitability. The second principle is future seeding. You plant subtle lines that make her mind connect desire with continuity. You don't ask for another meeting. You suggest it as if it's already destined. For example, "Next time I'll show you what I couldn't tonight," or "You're trouble, I'll need to keep my eye on you." These lines suggest future encounters without asking, placing you firmly as the one in control of when and how they happen. Now let's talk about mystery maintenance. Machiavelli understood that a ruler loses respect when he becomes predictable. In seduction, predictability kills desire. After the first night, you must avoid flooding her with messages or constant attention. Instead, you withdraw slightly. You give her space to miss you. You allow curiosity to grow. This withdrawal is not neglect. It is strategic scarcity. Scarcity intensifies value. The next layer is reward and denial. This technique ensures you remain the center of her obsession. At times, you reward her with attention, compliments, or physical intimacy. At other times, you deny, pulling back, acting busy, or teasing her with what she wants but cannot immediately have. This creates a push-pull dynamic that keeps her off balance, always wondering, always chasing. Machiavelli called it ruling through both fear and love, never allowing one emotion to dominate, but keeping both in play. Words play a powerful role here. Instead of saying, "I miss you," you say, "You've been haunting my thoughts today." Instead of saying, "I want to see you," you say, "Don't get too comfortable, I'll come steal your time again soon." These phrases are playful, yet commanding. They show desire, but they also maintain authority. At this stage, it's crucial to understand psychological anchoring. The first night sets the emotional tone for all that follows. If you created intensity, mystery, and inevitability, then every message, every glance, every call will reactivate those feelings in her. If you were sloppy, apologetic, or needy, you anchored weakness. That's why the beginning and the end matter equally. So how do you tie this entire strategy together into a single Machiavellian system? It comes down to three pillars: inevitability, control, and mystery. Inevitability makes her believe the outcome was natural, not forced. Control ensures you guide the frame at every step, never surrendering power. Mystery keeps her attention locked on you long after the first night ends. This is not a game of tricks. It is a philosophy of interaction. Machiavelli knew people crave direction, and when given a leader who combined confidence with subtlety, they followed willingly. Women respond the same way. They do not fall for the loudest man or the most desperate man. They fall for the man who speaks with calm certainty, who frames every moment as already written. Now remember this final lesson: never cheapen the experience by treating seduction as conquest. Machiavelli's true mastery was not in the destruction of his enemies, but in their willing submission. Apply the same wisdom. Make her feel that surrendering to you was not defeat, but discovery. Make her believe that giving herself to you was inevitable and unforgettable. When you master this, you no longer chase women. You no longer beg for their attention. You no longer stumble in uncertainty. Instead, you guide with authority. You speak with precision, and you command with ease. And every woman you encounter feels that invisible pull, the Machiavellian trick woven into every word. So the next time you speak to her, remember, it is not just about words. It is about the frame behind them. Speak like the outcome is already sealed. Speak like she is already yours. And when she surrenders, she will believe she chose it. That is the ultimate power, the deepest truth, and the timeless secret of Machiavelli's seduction. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to join the Brotherhood. See you in the next video.